Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having us. My name is Corporal Sean Ward. This is Officer Jeremy Cook. We're going to be giving you a presentation on fraud and other related things. A lot of this has to do with obviously your businesses. You guys are business owners or work for businesses, so these are important topics. But also things that you can remember in your personal life. Some of you may have seen this type of presentation before. If you have been through our Citizens Academy, this is something that we do. However, we kind of geared it a little bit more towards businesses as well. Like Nita said, there is a handout on your desk. You'll see a couple printouts of dollar bills, starting at a 5, going up to a 10, 20, 50, and 100. This is a document that we refer to a lot, or documents like this. This is a document put out by the Secret Service. That's who kind of governs the enforcing laws related to counterfeit bills and things like that. So there are a million ways to fake a bill. There are also a million different security features for bills, including color shifting ink, micro printing, and things like that. But this is a good reference. We don't want to stand up here and act like we're experts on counterfeit money. A lot of times with the really, really bad fakes, you can tell the difference. You can say, yeah, this is 100% fake. If it's a good one, right, we have to pull out something like this and actually reference it. So this is something that you can take back, or if you go on the Secret Service's website, they have plenty of documents about it. But Jeremy Cook, you want to explain a little bit about your career and kind of where you're at right now?
Sure, yeah, I've been with the Glendora Police Department for just about 3 years now. Previously, I worked for the railroad as a peace officer for a total of 8 between Amtrak and BNSF. So I saw both the passenger rail and freight rail side of the railroad. And moving in September, I'll be going back to the Detective Bureau to assist Sean here, and I'll be taking up the property crimes desk, which means that a lot of these kinds of cases, fraud, burglary, like I guess you got a presentation on previously, and other crimes against property type of things will probably come to me. So it's very possible I may be interacting with all of you at some point, hopefully not, but if you need a point of contact for the PD, for anything fraud related, you can certainly use me, and Sean's also an expert at this subject as well.
If at any point you guys have questions, feel free to ask them. I know sometimes if you wait till the very end, a lot of times you forget those questions. So feel free, this is very informal. It's not us trying to give a lecture and read off a PowerPoint and do all that. We've sat through many presentations and we know how it feels to be on that side listening. So some quick things we're gonna go over. We're gonna go over identity theft in general as to what it is, what it looks like, how your information is obtained by criminals, other related crimes that are encompassed with identity theft. That includes like using a forged access card. Somebody basically clones your debit or your credit card, is able to use it. We'll go over some investigations that we've personally done, as well as some things that have helped us have a successful resolution to our investigation, and then some preventative tips that you can take as a business owner or in your personal life. So 530.5 is the general statute for identity theft. It defines it as obtaining or using personal identifying information of another person without authorization and using that information for any unlawful purpose. So some of the things that are included in personal identifying info, it's basically anything that makes you you, right? Your name, your birthday, your social security number. That's like the one thing that we all think about. Like, hey, somebody stole my identity, they must have my social security number. Well, not necessarily, right? Because there are things you can apply for in our society that you don't necessarily need a social security number for. Sometimes you can apply to get a driver's license, or there are some types of, mostly with banks you need social security numbers, but like your licenses, other types of IDs, things like that you can get without that social security number. Any type of bank information, sometimes it can be phone numbers, things like that on a real small scale, but generally this is the information that encompasses your ID info. And so if somebody has this information and uses it without your permission for an unlawful reason, that's identity theft.
So a good example of this is that a lot of times we'll come across people that we arrest and they'll have either stolen IDs on them, they'll have stolen cards, they may just be blank cards that are reloadable. Even like a Starbucks card, it has like a magnetic strip on it. And so what they can do is they can take stolen PII and load that onto the magnetic strip, and you never really know it because at first glance it's just a Starbucks card. but sometimes, yes.
So just looking at that list, it doesn't look like either your driver's license, so the driver's license number, like your passport number, those sorts of things are not necessarily included?
They are.
Okay.
We just didn't wanna, list like an exhaustive list there.
Gotcha.
Just some of the basic things, but yes, yeah, driver's license number, passport number, all that is included.
What we're trying to say with this one is that it can be something as simple as your name and address. It
Okay.
doesn't necessarily need to be detailed bank information, social security numbers, things that are typically harder to access.
When you stop somebody and you find, a stack of driver's license, do you contact those people?
We try to.
Okay.
So if there's driver's licenses, a lot of times that makes it a lot easier to locate a possible victim. As I know Officer Cook talked about the reloadable cards or the re-encoded cards like that. That's much more difficult and is a lot more labor intensive, just because usually there's not a name attached to it. Usually it's just a number. We have a way to locate what bank that number actually belongs to, and then from there we have to write a search warrant to that bank for that card number to then get whatever true owner's information belongs to it. And then from there we can try and contact them. So that's a couple month process. And so if this person's arrested on, say, Tuesday, they're supposed to go to court on Thursday, they have all these cards, well, there's no possible way we're gonna be able to locate the owner of that card in 2 days. It's just not, it's not feasible. So that's something that's usually done after the fact, which makes it a little bit difficult during the investigation process. Yes.
So you say that, just your name and address, so every day you throw away your name and address in your trash.
Yeah, your mail.
Yeah.
That's something
I
we were
mean,
gonna talk
a pill
about.
bottle, it's just so many things that have your name on them.
Yeah, so this is a great, excellent example of that because these are the ways that your information is obtained by people that want to do something unlawful with it. Stolen mail is a big one, especially right now. It's super easy to do. Half the time you don't even know what happened, especially if you don't have a mailbox that is secured. And again, just anything could be in your stolen mail. It could be bank information, could be letters from the DMV, could be something innocuous like just a promo flyer. But a lot of folks that we will come across, they'll have stolen mail from all kinds of people with them. Makes it a little bit easier to go back and find these people because it typically has the addresses and it's gonna be oftentimes in like a string of houses that are right next to each other. So that helps us, but skimming devices, my partner mentioned. I think there's more slides on this later, but skimming devices take all forms. Anyone that works for a bank has probably seen a skimming device before. One of the most common places you'll see skimming devices is at a gas pump because they're relatively unsupervised. The person that works at the gas station isn't supervising who's messing with the pumps all the time. So they can take the shape of that. Sometimes they can even be handheld. Very small, just card readers. Sometimes employees or whomever out in the world, someone that deals with taking people's cards pretty frequently, they can have a skimming device which fits in the palm of your hand, and they can simply, when they go to have process someone's payment information for the order or whatever it is, they can just swipe it through the card reader real quick, and then they have the information from that magnetic strip in the device. Home and vehicle burglaries, again, people keep sensitive items, documents that have PII on that in their cars especially, homes as well. Telephone scams is a bit outdated, but it still happens all the time. I get relatively frequent calls from people that want to scare you, use scare tactics typically to try and get you to offer up information or pay them in some way, oftentimes by telling you that there's going to be like a warrant for your arrest or something silly, which many people are caught onto. Unfortunately, many aren't. And they will target the elderly quite frequently with this, we've found, and it works. They wouldn't keep doing it if it didn't work. Internet scams, kind of the same thing. I still get a bunch of scam emails, stuff that tells me my account at Amazon's been shut down. So those are kind of like phishing attempts to get you to access a web page, or they're gonna ask for you to input your information. Computer hacking.
Similar type thing, somebody gets control over your computer, some sort. A lot of times it happens on those phishing.
Best Buy.
Yeah, so, I mean, that could very well happen. You know, we like to say when we go into like a brick and mortar store, right? A lot of people have the assumption that because you have a brick and mortar location, right, that it's all up and up, right? Usually the business is, but you know, you hire employees, you don't necessarily know what the background is on them, whatever, and like you said, I mean, you never know. You could take your computer in there. You know, there's really no way to tell. But a lot of times information is purchased from other people on the street. This information is valuable, right? Because with this information, people can apply for loans, they can apply for credit cards, and that's good as cash, right? So they can sell that information. We have dealt with cases specifically on that. When I first got back into the detective bureau, there was a person that was using somebody's information to purchase vehicles. So they were able to purchase a brand new, at that time it was 2021 Tacoma, like fully loaded. This is like $50,000-$60,000 from a dealership out in Whittier. Then they went to our Ford dealership here in town, weren't able to buy a vehicle because they caught it on the credit report. So the employee, who's really good at his job, actually scrolled through the credit report, realized that something wasn't adding up, and then called the number that's listed on the credit report. Didn't go to the suspect, it went to the true victim, and then so they caught it that way. So we ended up arresting him later on down the road, and I asked him, like, how'd you get this person's information in the first place? And he told me the website and told me how he did it. You know, he basically purchased the information with Bitcoin, and you can search kind of whatever name you're looking for. So he found somebody with the exact name is him, because that's probably the smartest thing to do if you're trying to. Yeah. So I know. Yeah. It was pretty crazy. Cool. He told me. Wouldn't know, but you know. Yeah. So it was definitely interesting. But there's a whole slew of ways that your information can be taken. So this is some statistical data. I promise you this is the only statistical data slide we have because this isn't necessarily fun to look at. But it basically, in essence, just shows that fraud-related crime is rampant and it's growing. With that, a lot to blame is the use of computers, cell phones. You have a mobile computer with you at all times, right? Your information's constantly going back and forth across the internet. You're constantly logging in, using your personal information to log into different websites, to purchase things online. And every time you do that, right, if there is some sort of breach, whether it's a data breach with a company, something like that, or your information's intercepted on its course to somewhere else, you're at risk. So this just shows basically from 2001, very, very little. Nobody had cell phones, right? Nobody was carrying cell phones. And this is just up until 2020, and you have a crazy increase. I mean, it's about almost 5 million more reports. And this is just reports to the Federal Trade Commission, which not everyone reports to the FTC. We hear some people that report it to them along with us. They feel safe, they're reporting it to a federal agency. The federal agency probably isn't gonna look into your bank fraud. So report it to your local police department.
Right.
I think part of the reason that there's been such a sharp increase is that fraud and identity theft is relatively low risk compared to other crimes. You know, you can try 10 different cards on some website and they may not ever trace it back to you. But you know, as opposed to like breaking into a car or something a little more high visibility, it's relatively low risk. So Penal Code 484G defines the use of a forged access card or account information as every person who, with the intent to defraud, uses for the purpose of obtaining money, goods, or anything of value an access card or access card account information that has been altered or obtained fraudulently. And that kind of goes back to those altered cards with the magnetic strips. And that's the section that would cover much of that. There's a lot of sections that sort of overlap each other. Someone could get charged with that as well as the 530.5 section, kind of depending on what they've got and what we can prove that they tried to do.
Real world case that I had on this, it was 2 Romanian nationals. So they were inside of Bank of America, inside just the, not the walk-up ATMs, but they're just inside the first set of doors. But then there's the second set that prevents you from going into the actual bank. Well, they were sitting there, swiping card after card after card. And luckily there was some security company, I don't know what company Bank of America uses, but they were actually monitoring those cameras. And they saw this, right? It's not normal behavior for somebody to be swiping card after card, and then they were taking cash, swipe another card, take cash, swipe another card. So they called us, right? So we were able to stop them. They had, I think between the two of them, had about 60 re-encoded cards. They were actually all re-encoded EBT cards. And so the way EBT is that people that have one of those cards go through Bank of America. That's how they withdraw their money and things like that. So what we learned is they actually had put a skimmer on a Bank of America ATM about a week prior, collected all the data, and then went back and then was withdrawing all this money. So they had like, you know, I think it was something like $20,000 out of those 60 cards. So it's like Officer Cook said, it's profitable, right? And generally there's low risk, because if somebody wasn't actively monitoring those cameras at 6 o'clock in the morning at a Bank of America, out of how many Bank of America locations, like I don't know why they were watching that one, if it's just like a normal, they flipped through all the feeds and saw something a little weird. I mean, who's gonna catch it, you know? That's what makes it difficult, yes.
Has the chip changed things?
It's supposed to be more of a secure way. I mean, those cards with chips still have magnetic strips on them. So it still has the information on it. I know supposedly when you use your chip, it's less likely to get compromised, but if somebody's able to access that magnetic strip or something like that, I mean, I don't know.
So sometimes on newer skimmers, what they'll do is they'll also install a shimmer. Shimmer is something they install inside the machine that essentially blocks the chip from working, and so it forces you to swipe it. And in essence, it forces you to use their skimmer, which then obtains the information from the magnetic strip. So the more technology that we create and start utilizing, the more people try to find a way to get around
Tap,
it.
tap, tap.
Yeah, so it's tap, like Apple Pay, your best option, because you're not.
That I think is the most
Yeah.
important.
Yeah,
because-
I think it is.
Unless someone steals your phone, then you have to lock out all your accounts.
Yeah.
If they have a skimmer on it and you tap it, they're not gonna get that information.
Yeah, it's a one-time use. It creates basically a temporary credit card number for that one-time payment, and it's only good for so long. So like Apple Pay, Google Pay, I'm guessing is, sorry for anybody that has a Android, but but I heard Google Pay works pretty good. So, but Apple Pay. But this is an example of a ATM credit card skimmer. We need to update this with some more recent pictures of what the skimmers are starting to look like, because they are getting smaller and they blend in very, very well now. A lot of times, like the one I found on that case was literally, it was like a panel they had that went to the right of where you would insert your card, where I'm guessing they had their little camera in there, because you could see a tiny little pinhole cutout. So instead of this ball camera on the right that's kind of like contained in a box, because I'm guessing this picture that was provided from Bank of America is probably at least 10, 12 years old, maybe. That camera that they had in there was probably microscopic, and that's get PIN numbers, right? Because if you're using a debit card, which the EBT cards are, they don't work like a credit card. You actually have to punch in a PIN, and then they had their skimmer over top of that credit card slot. So that's how they were getting all that information. But they blend in very well. They do their homework, right? They're gonna paint them to match. They're gonna, try and make it look as low profile as possible and not bulky.
You can even look up pictures online of skimmers. The most common one I can think of is something that they can just place over the top of a credit card machine, like at a gas station, for example. Just those, you go to 7-Eleven, like the little points of sale they have that you insert your card into, they basically have just a whole facade kind of thing.
Yeah, it fits
Just-
right over the top. It literally looks just like where you pop in your numbers, right? Looks exactly like it, just fits right over the top. And we actually found one of those.
Is the
actually at
7
Walmart
Is
before.
the 7-Eleven store in on it, or they don't even notice that something's been placed over there?
In my experience, they typically don't know, because they'll release video footage later of the employee gets distracted, and as soon as they look away for a moment, like the person will just like pull it out of their jacket, out of a bag real quick, and just they can throw it on top so quickly because it blends in, and you'd never know unless they went back to look at the footage later. These are also some skimmers that you find at a gas station again. Most of the gas stations are installing that little security strip, the red sticker there, to try and let you know, to try and prevent this kind of thing from happening. But if you look at that picture at the top left, I believe on the left side completely is the original, like factory installed credit card reader. And then to the right of it is just this little attachment that they put on there that looks like it could be factory, but it's actually not.
And then those labels, I mean, you can purchase them online. You know, they're like, I call them like the feel-good labels, because you see them, except for the Costco ones, those are kind of cool. They actually say Costco on them. So those ones maybe a little harder to fool, but these ones, you know, you can buy those. Making re-encoded credit cards, it's not as difficult as some would think. You can buy most of the tools on Amazon. Yeah, not that it's not illegal to purchase those items. It's because there are legitimate uses for these types of items, right? If you're working in a hotel business and you need to make hotel keys, you know, something like that, or you're punching like, I don't know, like customer cards or something, like rewards cards or something like that. But if you use it for an unlawful purpose, then, you know, there's obviously legal ramifications to that. But
So kind of like a lockpick set. It's not illegal to have a lockpick set, but to go pick someone's lock.
exactly,
Right.
exactly.
So these are some common internet scams that we still see. I haven't seen a lottery one in quite a while, but PayPal and other alerts are super common because almost everyone uses PayPal these days. You know, everyone's email addresses are floating out there on the internet somewhere, so people just collect that information, they'll blast out some scam email. It'll say something to the effect of your account's been blocked, your account's been whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been,
I get that all the time.
Yeah.
I get it for Wells Fargo. I get it for Bank of America. I don't have either one of those accounts. And or you get it on your Amazon account. Hey, your Amazon account's been locked. Unlock it. You need to click this link and re-enter your information. And then you re-enter it into their website that they make look like Amazon. And then they have your information. Get in Amazon. Maybe purchase a couple things. I don't know. You know, do what have you with that.
same thing for like rental postings. I'm actually looking for a new apartment right now, and so I've seen some of these that look obviously fake. On Craigslist, for example, you'll find some posting that seems too good to be true, and we all know what they say about that.
Yeah.
So, you know, it'll be like one picture of a house that someone may have taken, may have not, may have just obtained from a different listing, like legitimate listing, and then they'll put a bunch of what look like stock photos as far as the interior. And again, it's kind of a way of trying to fish you a little bit, like obtain your information, get you to reach out to them, get your phone number, and then just probably add you to some phone call scam list. Love interest scams. Been a while since I had anything to do with one of those, but
Yeah, generally focus more on elderly individuals. You don't have to necessarily worry about this when it comes to your business, but personally, if you have loved ones in your life that are elderly, maybe parents, grandparents, things like that, this is something to watch out for. We've had a couple cases where people have sent very large amounts of money to people, believing that, hey, this person, you know, cares about me, they're gonna come visit me. They said their, you know, son or daughter's sick and they need $50,000 to, you know, pay for medical bills, and they'll send the money. You tell them you need to stop sending the money. You need to stop sending the money. Keep sending it. So it's sad, right? A lot of these types of scams do focus on the elderly because they are trustworthy, or they are trusting in other people generally. And then we mentioned banking alerts, like those Wells Fargo text messages you'll get, or emails. You'll see a couple that actually look pretty legit, like on the right, you have that Wells Fargo alert there, and it's basically saying that your account's restricted or you can't access it unless you hit this link. It's gonna prompt you to input your information into there, which is your banking information. From there, they will quickly basically dry out your entire account. They'll transfer that money out. So that's why these types of things, these phishing attempts, are, they seem pretty minor until you actually click on those links and go through it. It's not very minor. They will quickly drain that bank account and start sending money out. This one on the left is an example Amazon phishing attempt. It's making it look like it's coming from the legitimate Amazon, saying that your account is locked, or your order's on hold. I don't know how many people order things on Amazon, but like that's like Christmas every day for me. So if I saw an Amazon email, that wouldn't necessarily raise a red flag to me. If it came in my inbox, said Amazon on it, I'd be like, oh, what's that? Check it. I'm like, my Amazon account. Well, I need to get my thing I have coming in 2 days, 2-day free shipping. I gotta check it out, right? That's the whole thing. They're trying to rush you into making a decision. They're saying, hey, your account is locked now, and if you don't do something, we're gonna, keep you from ordering. Yes.
But we've had a few members that get scammed, and they say, yeah, your account's locked. Then the fraudster will take over the member's computer
Mm-hmm.
and they'll make a transfer from their savings to their checking for like $2,000.
Mm-hmm.
Then they'll tell the member on the line, oh, I made a mistake. I meant to, give you $200. I transferred $2,000. I need that money back. Give it to me. And the member doesn't even look at the savings account and realize the money was transferred.
Yeah.
There's just so many scams.
Yeah, exactly. So if you look closely at that email on the left, the Amazon one, you can see that it says from Amazon.com. That's something that is basically manually inputted by a user, and then to the right you can see the actual email address it's coming from. That's not anywhere close to Amazon. It's kind of small, but it says adap@sci.ng. So that should be kind of your first clue, looking at the actual sender of that email. And then looking at it, probably the easiest way to look at these types of emails or phishing attempts is most of these come from out of the country, so looking for spelling and grammar mistakes is like number one. Amazon's not gonna send you an email riddled with errors, unfortunately. They're like, proper business, and they care about their image and stuff like that. So to me, when I get this kind of stuff, I mostly get the text message thing because your phone number's out there and you get all those calls and stuff. It's actually kind of humorous to me to because I'm like really big on grammar and things like that. So to read these, I obviously don't click on them, but it's kind of funny.
With the phishing scam,
Yes.
is there should you actually report these, or because for instance, even with at our business, I every now and then we'll get a call from DoorDash, and they're like, oh, I need your login information because we gotta send you your tablet, or they're like, but they ask for it in things, and and you're like, yeah, I'm just gonna call back the actual number, and the guy got super angry. He's like, I'm almost done. I'm like. Yeah. But is that something you should report to anybody, or is it just well, there's just too many numbers out there?
Yeah. So we get quite a few. Fraud-related crimes that do have a phone number associated with it, right? It started with a phone call, or maybe it started with that rental thing, and then they got them on the phone, so they have a possible phone number. In my experience, generally when we're investigating these, I'll get that phone number. I have a way to basically search for that phone number to see, a lot of times it'll show me what subscriber it is, so who owns that phone number, and then what the carrier is. I would say 99 out of 100 times, most time the carrier belongs to a VoIP number or a voice over IP number. It's an internet-based phone number that anybody can basically purchase use of a phone number to send text messages, make phone calls, things like that. And they're generally anonymous. So, report it, yes, but that's kind of what ends up happening during the investigation, is it kind of leads us to that. And then there's no way to identify where this person is because we can't find a physical address for them. We don't even know if they're in the States or if they're out of the country, something like that. So it makes it difficult. That's why, like Officer Cook said, these types of crimes go on and they've increased so much because they're generally low risk to the suspects, right? They're doing everything they can to conceal their identity, to use internet-based phone numbers, things like that. And if they make 100 calls a day, they only need 1 or 2 to go for it, and it's worth it. So that's what makes it hard. So we've kind of hit on the investigation a little bit. A lot of times the investigation usually works backwards, like you said with the phone numbers. If you provide us a phone number, we'll try and work backwards that way and try and identify somebody. Or with the cards, if we arrested somebody with those rain-coded cards, we're contacting the bank, providing them the card numbers, and then from there we get the victim information and then contact the victims figure out that they were victims of fraud at some point. Maybe their information was stolen from a Bank of America a couple cities over. We'll try and get video to see if there was a ATM skimmer installed on that one. So it's a long process, but there is a way to try and locate these people, generally when it comes to things like that. The phone scams are hard. The internet-based scams are hard because a lot of that you're requesting information on like IP addresses, which are difficult, trying to locate, where exactly those are. If somebody uses like a virtual private network or like a VPN, right, they can kind of disguise where exactly they're located, so that's a whole nother thing that makes it a little bit difficult.
Having a bank investigator and fraud department contacts is really crucial for us. For example, I had to work with the California EDD at one point, unemployment, because of essentially an altered unemployment check that someone had tried to cash at Walmart. Luckily they caught on to it, and so they reported it to us, and we were able to actually do a pretty thorough investigation on that one and discover that a guy that now lives in Alaska had an entire unemployment account opened under his name, and the checks were being sent to a guy in Riverside, and the guy in Alaska had absolutely no idea. So this person had probably taken about $20,000 from that unemployment account, just from the state of California. But the investigator that we had at the California EDD that was assisting us, unfortunately, couldn't be that helpful, and so we had to do search warrants to the California Unemployment Department in order to get information from them. Sounds ridiculous because we're on the same team, right? Unfortunately, that's just their protocol. But when it's not a state department like that and it's just a private bank, a lot of times investigators or whoever works for your fraud department can be really helpful for us because they can give us that information without us having to like jump through all these hoops, which just slows us down. Yes, ma'am.
Do banks, like for example, we have ATMs, is there anybody here, trained to go and check to make sure there's no scammers on there? Isn't that something they should be doing?
So, what I personally do when I'm going around trying to purchase things, especially whether it's at a gas pump or using my debit card to pull cash out from an ATM, I literally do like a physical like tug and pull like method on like a couple different things. I'm not trying to like shake the machine for it to set off alarms because God forbid I don't want the cops showing up on it. Just
Most,
take
most banks or credit unions have an audit sheet, and they do that at least once a month.
Yeah.
They look for a whole bunch of stuff on the ATM sheet.
Yeah. There were a couple ATM skimmers that were put on a Wells Fargo branch, and then another branch here locally right next to it. And they were telling me something like they've been actually adding stuff to their ATM, whether it's, something where it prevents somebody from adding a skimmer or makes it a little more difficult. They've been like experimenting on their ATMs, like adding additional security features and stuff like that, which is cool. But like you said, the audit once a month.
It could be there for 2 weeks and.
Yeah.
That's
Gotcha.
only 12 times
Yeah,
a year,
yeah.
right? So I think also armored truck services, places that do utilize those, a lot of times the armored truck drivers or the people that collect the money, they will oftentimes come up with those skimmers, like whatever part of their protocol, whatever they do to access the ATMs or whatever is holding the money, they check those things, a lot of times they'll come across those skimmers themselves.
They'll just put them in the bag. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think they really do anything with it
Yeah.
except just take it off and
Yeah.
yeah. We used to have an officer that worked for us that was previously employed with an armored truck service, and I think he said that they just collected them and notified the bank, but I don't think they really did much past that.
Yeah. A lot of the information, especially your stuff related to your cell phone or your telephone, is protected under the Electronic Communications Privacy Act, which is a good thing. It's a good thing as like a consumer or like an everyday person, because somebody can't just like access your information without you knowing or unlawfully. But it does make it a little more difficult for us and lengthens the investigation process. So that is just one of the hurdles that we do have to overcome when we are investigating these types of cases. Not that it's a lot of work, it's just a process. But here are some prevention tips. These things, like a lot of things that we've been talking about work both in your personal lives, also with your business, right? Notify your bank, if you work for a bank, you know, go through your internal processes. But if you work for another business and have some sort of fraud on your accounts, you happen to fall for a phishing, you know, scam, you get some sort of alert, and they get access to your business bank account. Notify your bank immediately and us, so we can document it and we can investigate it. Regularly review any sort of financial history on your business accounts, things like that. When it comes to money, everybody's always after like that big pot of money you have, right? Nobody wants to work for their own money. They always want to like grab everybody else's money for whatever reason. Place fraud alerts on your credit reports, or as a business, you know, whatever measures you need to take. Yes, ma'am.
Do you report it in the city that your bank's in or where you live?
Generally wherever you're doing business at. So if you do business in Glendora, you can report it here in Glendora.
Kinda,
Yeah, go
I would say that could kind of go either way. A lot of times, if you do get your information compromised and you find an unauthorized charge in West Covina, you might think, well, I'll call the West Covina Police Department and they'll deal with it. A lot of times they're gonna refer you back to the place where you live or do business. It's kind of frustrating just because, you know, you would think West Covina, like they're in the right place to try and go handle it, to try and go investigate it. But again, it can probably go either way. But again, I think probably your home or wherever you do business is probably the best way to go about it. And then we can work with whatever police department's in the area that, wherever the unauthorized transaction occurred.
And with that, that's the end of the PowerPoint. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, right.
Would you say the order of progression would be to contact the bank first? So you get, because then you can use their information? Because the concern out there is always, if
Yeah.
I call the police before I call the bank, then they're gonna say you interfere with the investigation, or we're working on two different tracks.
No, I would say notify the bank, because you kind of want to, you know, for lack of a better term, almost stop the bleeding, right? Like, if somebody's accessed your bank account, do whatever you can to stop it, because if you wait maybe an hour to call the police, or it takes us about an hour to maybe get out there, take a report, and then like another hour to find like, oh, the bank accounts haven't been frozen or anything like that, we need to call. Well, that's 2 more hours of damage that's been done. So yeah, notify the bank right off the bat and get that dealt with. Yes.
Can I ask you questions?
Sure.
My first, I just wanna make sure I'm understanding this correctly. When you hold this under our UV lights, it should be showing this color based on which bill it is?
Yeah.
Cause that would be a cool change.
What's on?
Yeah.
My second question is, we have 16, 17, 8-year-olds that are like taking the cash out of restaurants, and for the most part, we don't cash the big bills until after they've already taken them. But let's say hypothetically, the team was to be able to like identify it. What's the verbiage you're supposed to use? You're supposed to keep it, correct? And then if the guest is like, no, I want my money back, like how are they supposed to handle it?
I would say do whatever you can to ensure that there's not like a disturbance inside the business. If it requires them giving it back to the person and them just leaving and you call the police, perfect. Because if you end up keeping it, we don't want that situation to escalate to that person, you know, to become upset at your 16, 17, 18-year-old employee, and then there end up being some sort of argument or physical altercation, something like that in there. If giving it back to them solves the issue and they walk away, say, yeah, sorry, you know, we can't take this, then just call us.
They probably
Provide a
have more in their
description.
pocket.
Yeah.
Didn't take it.
Yes, sir.
Is there, I mean, both Chick-fil-A and Classic Coffee, like, our people are very visible, but we do handle a lot of cards. I mean, heaven forbid we ever hire somebody that has ill intentions, but like, is there a certain, behavior that like, people that are like, you know, trying to like, like scan the cards would be showing, or even as like a customer, like, you know, someone like takes off, you know, in a restaurant with your card, is there a certain kind of behavior you should be like looking for?
I wouldn't say like criminals have like an exact profile of what they do or don't do. I worked a internal employee theft for one of the large stores in town, and the person that they identified it as basically being an employee stealing money. Basically what they were doing is they were doing fraudulent returns. So somehow they gained access to a bunch of people's driver's license numbers because it was company policy that to do a in-store return for a gift card with or without a receipt. Without a receipt, you had to get a driver's license number. So I don't know if over the course of doing legitimate returns, he basically collected a bunch of driver's licenses and then did these basically return scams against his own company and amassed, a large quantity of gift cards, and then later resold them on those resale websites on the internet where you can sell them for, half off, 75%, what have you. So he didn't necessarily meet like a profile, you would say, right? Which is interesting. Like some of the people we come across in our daily jobs, you think, what happened? It seems like an everyday kind of person. I think one of those things is kind of staying, diligent in reviewing surveillance video. If something feels odd to you, just in your everyday interactions, you kind of know what's normal for this person or might be normal, and then kind of the next day something feels kind of odd or kind of
You probably
different
don't
to you.
write credit reports on your staff because they're so good.
Yeah.
Do you have anything on that?
Yeah, that's a tough one. And when it comes to to skimming cards, if they take a customer's card and they skim it before they actually process the transaction, those things are hard to pick up on. So a lot of times it's gonna come from either like maybe the customer side, another employee side, just being aware of your surroundings.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Or if you have like multiple complaints from like customers that come back in and it starts looking kind of like a pattern.
Do you know what the most common denomination of a fraud, counterfeit?
I would say most people go big, go for the 100.
Okay.
But I don't know, those new 100s though are actually, I think they're pretty difficult to
Yeah.
counterfeit. They have a lot more security features than.
It's
the
probably
one-
like a lot of stores won't take.
Yeah, cause I think
bills.
I think that came into play in 2013, that new 100. So might start seeing more, 20s, don't really see too many 50s. It's kind of odd, like you see somebody pay with like a $50
Yeah,
bill.
right?
Somebody has a $50 bill, I'm like, where'd you get that?
I'd say 20s.
Other
20s.
20s just because they're a little more innocuous, like
Right.
everyone sees a 20 all the time.
Right.
But I think even some stores may have a policy, when you get 100, you have to, swipe it with a marker maybe, or it typically
Yeah.
garners a bit more attention than passing a 20.
See like those signs too, that they don't accept
Right.
bills over a 20, like
Mhm.
after a certain time. And I don't know if that's because like maybe managers aren't on duty at that time, they have to
Yeah.
get approval for anything over a 20. Sure. Yes.
Going back to one of your earlier slides when it had to do with people accessing your information, I remember hearing years and years ago that somebody was working inside of the DMV in Sacramento and selling information. But on applications or not applications, but questionnaires for doctors and dentists and things like that, they always ask you for your driver's license, your social security. I never put it down. Never put it down, because that is like old school. That's the way they used to come after you if you owed them money. If they would, you were able to, like a long time ago on checks, you would write down their driver's license number. For those of you that have been in retail for a long time, I was in retail for a long time, and you would write the expiration date in their driver's license, and then that went out of vogue. But you do not have to put that information on that application to be a new patient for a dentist or a doctor. So just don't do it, leave it blank. They're not gonna ask you for it. They
Good
never-
point.
That's a good point. Yeah. When it comes to things like that, I would typically only give whatever information is required. Don't give any extra.
I have a random question.
Sure.
Okay, so I always tell my team that one of the ways that you can also tell if money is real or not is money has like a distinct smell to it. Is that true? I feel like between a fake bill that we've held up and a real bill, something about the real bill.
He's not the only one, there's a couple managers who are like, no, for sure I can smell the difference between like.
I would be
fake
careful
and
when smelling
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, there might be something on it.
Money
Yeah.
is pretty dirty. I don't know that
You're
I.
smelling the
But there
dirt.
might be a substance on it,
Maybe it just means it's just been like cycled through and passed hands quite a bit
Sometimes you
more
can
than like
feel
maybe
it,
a
too.
counterfeit bill.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sometimes you
the
can feel it.
feel is the
Right.
type of paper it's on.
Right.
Yeah.
That's generally what you get there. Yeah,
Yeah.
it costs on smelling
Thank you.
It's kinda true, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Don't rely on that. Your method of,
Not that that's our only method, but there's like, it's not right now.
make it out like the last of 15.
Yeah.
So what about pens? Like we've had like cash pens and I've tested them on like bills that we know
Yeah.
are fake and that doesn't always,
I know.
like,
They're
so
not
do we
really
not
well
utilize
functioned.
pens?
Personally, I don't like using those pens just
Yeah.
because, I don't know, it seems a little, I don't know, it seems more gimmicky than anything to me. I rely on the actual security features that, you know, the Secret Service puts out. It says, hey, these are what are on the bill, to do this. If they came up with a pen and said this one works 100% of the time, put it out to the world, I'd say, all right, cool. But until it's in that list, you know, we don't use that. I don't use
Yeah,
that.
we've had
Pens are
some
legit.
that are fake that the pin didn't show, but then when you put it under the
UV.
machine, it's fake. Yeah.
Pens are pretty low tech at this point, especially considering all the security features that are built in now. Yeah, pen is probably not the most reliable option.
Any last minute questions?
Oh, one more, sorry. I know this one is kinda outdated, but is there more letters, are we about the letters for the serial numbers on bills? Is there newer letters now? that you're
I'm not sure. If you go on the Secret Service's website, that's where this was found. So if you type in "Know Your Money," this was directly pulled off their website. They may have newer letters, or the exemplars are showing maybe old series bills,
Oh, okay.
but maybe they have all the current actually lettered series on there. I think it's E through L or EGIJL.
Okay.
Because I don't know if we've had, let's see. Yeah, check their website and see if they have something new. This is the most current sheet that I found on their website. But,
Alright, well, I just wanna say thank you so much, gentlemen, really helpful, and I would say, you know, for a lot of these things too, find your resource, police department is, you know, they're always, Glendora's great about offering help, offering information. A lot of bankers, I know a lot of things I've learned has been from, you know, some of my bankers that I've gone and talked to. The pen, we stopped using that years ago because they'll bleach bills and then reprint on them, so it'll pick up the paper, but, you know, it's, you know, printed on a 5 or a 1 or something like that, so, yeah, that's why we don't use those. And, you know, there are all kinds of scams out there, they only cover, you know, so many. We've had cash handling scams where someone gives you 100 and it's like, wait a second, give me that back, I found a 20 and they're using the 20 you gave them. So I mean, there's all kinds of stuff out there, people are clever, so they said, just kind of be aware if it doesn't feel right, you know, probably isn't. But thank you guys so much. Make sure you guys check out the National Night Out. I know it's a great time, and Zootopia is like, literally, I love that movie. I've watched it so many times because of my kids, and I still laugh at it. So, you know, if nothing else, go after that. You know, Citizens Academy is always good to learn more too. We also have one of our next big events. Make sure you let people know the next Education Committee event that's coming up is going to be Southern California Gas and Edison are going to come and do an informational for businesses and the public. There's going to be going over what's going on with energy in the state and kind of what's going on with that. Some tips for, you know, so you be able to save at your house and, you know, also your business on your bills.
What is that?
It's gonna be in September. I think we're looking at September 20th.
September 20th?
It's gonna be at the Bidwell Forum, but please let people know about that. And there is gonna be a question and answer there too. So if, you know, I think we all have questions about what's going on with gas and you know, power in the city. So that should be exciting. So keep an eye out for that. And again, thank you, officers, so much.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Have a great day, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.